Welcome to Rock Your Talk. I'm Leisa Reid, host of Rock Your Talk, founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now, and trainer of productive learning. I'm very excited about our guest today. It is the lovely and talented Viki Johnston. Welcome, Viki. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much, Leisa.
Thanks. I'm doing good. I'm so glad you're on the show today. And we're going to hear some great communication tips from Viki. Also, I wanted to make sure, as our listeners, that you are aware you get a couple of freebie gifts by being a listener of our show. As the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now, I help speakers learn how to get booked, stay booked, and attract their clients through speaking. If that is something that appeals to you, go to GetSpeakingGigsNow.com and get your 5 top tips to get more speaking gigs. That is a free gift for you. If you are also somebody who is like, I really know the power of my thinking, and I know that sometimes I think things that aren't really helping me, but I don't know how to not do that, and I really want some different results, but I'm not really sure where to get started, then you're going to want to head over to productivelearning.com/gift, because we have a class that we're offering for you. It's a free course, and it's called New Thinking for New Actions. And it's really packed full of great information that you can use right away, and some assignments you can do right on your own pace to start to shift that thinking into new actions. Very, very powerful stuff. I absolutely love the work we do at Productive Learning. So a couple of gifts there for all of you. And now let's get into our show with Viki Johnston and how to be a better communicator. So Viki, before we even get started with all that, tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing what good you're putting out in the world. My goodness. I'm talking today.
Yeah, I know, it's one of those days. Yeah, thank you, Leisa. So I'm not from California originally. I'm from the UK, just in case you didn't recognize. If you didn't know, I know. I've slipped into the California store very easily, though. So I moved to Irvine about 3 years ago, but I've had my own business for 17 years. I'm a trainer and coach by profession. So I help people in business with their leadership challenges, communication, and collaboration. So I'm all about helping people work together and creating team environments and helping leaders become better leaders. And a big part of that is how we communicate with each other. So that's kind of that's where I kind of like to go in right at the beginning, because if we can't get the communication right, then the rest of it's going to be a bigger challenge.
So true. I don't even know if I told you this. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in speech communication. So we're like sisters in that sense. I'm like, yes. I always am fascinated with how we can be better communicators. And I'm still constantly learning about how I can tackle those like difficult conversations or crucial conversations. And when emotions are high and, stakes are high and differing opinions, it can be scary to communicate what you truly feel or want. So that's why I'm so excited to hear your tips today. So what's your, I know you're telling us about how to be a better communicator, right?
Yes. So the first tip, the first thing that we need to do when we're communicating is not talk, but to listen. So that might sound a bit strange, but we have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. So, and lots of people, when they think about communication, they think, well, I need to express myself and I need to get it all out there. But actually the most effective way to communicate is to listen and listen to what people are saying. And also the big thing around this is not to listen to reply, but to listen to understand. Because then what happens is that you're really truly listening to what that person's saying to you, and then your questions will flow. And I've had people before on training programs say to me, but surely I need to plan how I'm going to respond, and I need to think about my next question. But if you really just stop and listen, then the next question comes to you and it feels more natural, because you're not kind of reading off a list and saying, oh, this is my next question and this is my next question. The questions then flow because you've heard what that person has said, and it triggers something. I'm all about creating light bulb moments. That's my big thing. And if you really listen to somebody and they give you a gem of information and you catch that, and then you ask a question about that, it builds the conversation. It's more natural, and the person really feels that they're being listened to, which is a big part of building relationships and communicating with other people. So that's my number 1 tip.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's true. I mean, wow. We would have, I think, a lot more peace in the world, right? If we were able to really develop that skill at I would hopefully say at a young age and then really bring that forth. But you can always learn even as an adult.
Yes, definitely. And it still amazes me that in school, children aren't really taught to listen. They're expected to listen.
Yeah.
But nobody really tells you how to do that. And there is a skill behind it that we should all be developing, but it can be a bit of a challenge because our brains are ticking all the time and we're always thinking, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that's where we need to slow down and just listen.
Yeah. It reminds me as you're speaking, it prompted an idea of communication as a study, right? Like you think like, well, we talk, so why would we already know how to talk. Why would we need to study communication? So I could hear the same argument being said for, well, we know how to hear, assuming, you know, the hearing is you have the ability, but, so why would I need to learn how to listen? But it's a similar, like, well, you need to also learn how to communicate effectively. You need to learn how to listen effectively so that you can get more of what you want. And probably even see, like if we were going through all the tape, you know, all the senses, it's like, yeah, there's lots of things you can learn about all the senses.
Yes.
Very cool. Very
and we do lots of things unconsciously. So we don't really think about listening because you're right. We just assume, well, I can hear. If you can hear, I can hear everything. So therefore I listen, but that's not the case.
No, it's not. I know one thing that I've learned over the years, probably in the last 10 years, and it gets better each year, is when so it was like this, and I'm sure you work with this with people too. Like when I'm feeling a certain way, like say I'm in a heated conversation or just like a unpleasant conversation, I'm starting to feel maybe it's defensive or angry or unheard, like I'm not being heard. I'm able to go, oh, that probably means, not 100% of the time, but that probably means that other person isn't feeling heard or understood, or they're feeling defensive. So then I'm starting to feel that way. So then if I can like kind of catch that's how I'm feeling, and it's probably because of the dynamic, that helps me go, okay, let me just pause for a second. And then I can say like, wait, are you feeling like I'm not understanding you? Or is there more that you need to tell me? Because I'm sensing, you know, I feel like you're not understanding me, which makes me think that maybe I'm not understanding you. But that is like I will say like, that's an advanced technique, right?
Oh, definitely.
We're not born out of the womb like that, you know?
Yeah. Oh, no. And I think, you know, we tend to come at it from our own perspective a lot of the time. So, and if you feel like you're not being heard, you think, I just need to shout louder. Yeah. I need to be bigger. I need to be more aggressive in my communication. But actually, it's much better to, as you say, just take a step back and think, hang on a minute, if I'm feeling like this, if I'm shouting and trying to be heard, maybe that's because they're not being heard. And you know, the simplest thing sometimes is just to say, okay, you know, let me really listen. Let me hear what you're saying. Let me see if I can resonate with everything that you're saying to me, so that we can get on the same level. And even that is just, that helps deal with conflict a lot, because as you say, people don't feel that they're being heard. And, you know, you've got one or two reactions. You either get louder or you just shrink back and you say, well, I give up.
Yeah. Silence or violence kind of on
yes.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed too, that sometimes I'll say, okay, I hear what you're saying. Oh yeah. Okay. I understand. And I might even paraphrase it back. Like, so you're saying that you want da, 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 da. And they'll say, yeah. And then, but they're still telling me again, like as if they don't feel heard. So then I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what you're looking for from me, because it sounds like you don't feel like I've heard you or that I don't understand you, but I feel like I do. So is there something else that I'm missing, or is there something else that I haven't indicated to you that we're not like here yet? And even so, it's like that meta communication of like talking about the communication in the communication, like what's actually happening right now.
Yeah.
It's also kind of, that's a game changer, right? And I would imagine when you work with companies, when multiple people in the organization are able to elevate their skill, all of a sudden, probably some magic happens, right, in the organization.
Yeah, definitely. And actually that kind of brings me into tip number 2, really, which is about our behavior. And what happens is, as you're describing there, you can see you're saying all the right words, but you're using your other sense of reading people's body language and thinking, you know, well, it's still not getting through here. There's something that's still wrong. And it's not because they're saying anything. So it's not your listening skills. It's actually your visual ability your sensory acuity.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at somebody and thinking, no, they're still not getting me. So what we do is we read people's behavior, and then we make a judgment quite often about their behavior and say, well, they're sitting back with their arms crossed, so therefore they're not interested, or they're being distracted by something else, so therefore this means. But in actual fact, people are not their behaviors. That's just what you're seeing, and that's what you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
And often we misinterpret people's behaviors as something that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, well, they're just not interested in me.
Right.
And sometimes it could be that the person that you're talking to is looking up and thinking, how does that make sense to me? And they're using a different part of their brain to kind of make sense of something. Or they're sitting back thinking, okay, let me just absorb this information. And we misread that. We misread that communication. And then we make a decision about it. And then the communication breaks down again because we've made a judgment about somebody's behavior. And we use behaviors, and we use behaviors to categorize people. So we say, you know, well, they're just not my type of person, or they're not interested in this subject, or they're lazy. And we kind of put people in boxes because of the behavior that we see. And we need to learn how to not do that, how to undo that. And say, when we're reading somebody's behavior, and it's fine to say, oh, it looks like you're being distracted by something, or it looks like you're not understanding what I'm saying to you. And they might respond with, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. And we all have these distractions. We have our phones that, you know, ping, and we all get distracted by things. And we read that in our communication and make a decision about that person. And then it's difficult to build that communication.
Yeah. So it's I'm hearing a few different things in how you're describing it, which I really appreciate. Is like, a part of it is being aware and looking at the body language, or whatever the nonverbal things you're picking up, their behavior, but also noticing in yourself, how are you making a story about that? And then being able to go, okay, let me check if it's appropriate, you know, or needed, let me check and see if I'm right, like kind of a little perception checking there, and say like, this is what I was thinking that was going on with you, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something else going on. And are we on the same page, or whatever it is that you need to address if needed? Obviously, you're not going to need to do that with every single person, but sometimes it's more necessary than others. Like if you're in like a brainstorming session and one person, all of a sudden you haven't heard from them in a while, or I think it's also like, almost like poker, where different people have different tells, right? Like not, like someone I know will sigh, like he does this, you know, kind of. And so when I hear that, I'm like, okay, he's working on something in his mind. And so I might let the first one go, and, you know, but then the next time I might, okay, let me check in. Now that's the second one I've heard. Are we good? Is there something else going on? Is there something you want to say? Or like, where are we at? And just even that can really shift the conversation.
Yeah.
Also not coming with like judgment of like, oh, he's sighing, so then I think, you know, he thinks that, and I'm off somewhere, which doesn't make any sense. That's not going to be helpful either, right?
No.
I go on with this fantasy about what I think is right.
But we all do. We all make decisions in our head. So 55% of our communication comes just through our body language. Mm-hmm. And if you think about as babies, when they can't physically communicate with you, what they're doing is reading your body language, and they're picking up on whether somebody is angry or sad, or we read body language from like almost the moment that we're born. It's an ingrained ability that we have. Mm-hmm. But often we do it unconsciously. So we have body language, we have tics that we do, and also we have triggers. So somebody may trigger you with their own body language, and you're like, oh, well, that's the response I always get. Mm-hmm. But
that's good to know then too about yourself, of like, what are you bringing in? What's kind of your baggage? Like, what baggage are you bringing in?
Yeah.
And assigning meaning to when it may or may not really be the case.
Yes, yes. And we all do that. We all have our own things that trigger us into a response from something. And it's, you know, and everybody has different triggers, different responses. And, you know, again, where we have conflict in conversations is because somebody will say something and another person will receive it in a completely different way to how it was intended. But communication is all about how it's received. It's not about how it's intended. So we just need to be careful about, you know, how am I coming across to this person, and how am I reading this person? What decisions am I making about them? And how does that affect the way that I interact with them? For 100%. Sure. Yeah, yeah.
I know you have a third tip for us too,
I do
right?
have number 3. So number 3 tip is, and it actually falls into that. So communication is all about feedback. So the only way we can learn how to become better at what we do is to receive feedback. And often we may see feedback as a negative, a critical thing. So if somebody says, look, I didn't understand a word you just said then. And we're like, oh, okay, so it's that's my fault then, is it? So I didn't communicate, rather than you weren't listening to me. Mm-hmm. So we end up having some conflict, whereas the feedback should be, oh, okay, so I need to change the way that I'm communicating with you so that you can understand what I'm saying, because I already understand it. Mm-hmm. So the feedback that I'm receiving means I have an opportunity to do this better and to make our communication more effective. And feedback is a weird thing. So people may say to you, I don't get it. Or people might just go, oh, okay.
Oh, no.
And that is feedback. That, you know,
sure.
Again, we're reading body language. So if you're picking up some vibes from somebody and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not sure that really hit home. Maybe mm-hmm. I need to, and again, as you said earlier, we need to check in with that feedback and say, oh, I'm sensing from you, maybe I haven't made that clear. And it is all about owning it and saying, you know, you've given me an opportunity here to improve and to make our relationship stronger by allowing me an opportunity to do this better. Mm-hmm. Rather than taking it as a criticism, or even to say, well, this relationship's never going to work because you don't understand me and everything I say, you just ignore me. That is feedback to you. Yeah. To say, well, okay, so now I know I need to interact with you slightly differently to the way I interact with other people, because the way that you receive information from me is different. I mean, they may be reading your body language in a way that's, you know, unintended from you. And again, that's feedback. So everything that we do, communication has to be a two-way thing. It's always a two-way thing. So I tell you something, you have to then interpret that into your own map of the world, how you see things, and receive that information. I then have to pick the feedback or the communication back from you, whether it's verbal or in your body language. I have to pick that back up and go, okay, so now we're having a two-way conversation, even though maybe only one of us is speaking.
Yeah, that's such a deep, I mean, you know, we could probably talk about this for quite some time, because there's so many different ways now that we have different ways feedback comes in. Sometimes it could be, you know, back in, you know, a few months ago, it could be face-to-face, yeah, in-person things. And I'm a speaker, and you're a speaker and trainer. And so there's, sometimes it's immediate feedback right there, but also we get feedback from emails and social media and, you know, all these different other ways, virtual, like on Zoom now. So there's a feedback just kind of coming in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes like I liked what you said about the other time, it could be really subtle feedback. It's not like they're saying, I'm going to give you some feedback now, would you be open to that? Like, it's more just like you're getting feedback where you kind of get like a dazed look, or like, oh yeah, I get where yeah, I heard you. And they're kind of like, you know, so you know, and then how you want to engage with that is, again, back to your own awareness of yourself and the purpose, mm-hmm, and what you're doing. But it sounds like, especially working in a company, like what you're helping companies with, to, again, elevate the conversation for, mm-hmm, the employees to be open to that loop, keep that feedback loop open, to ask for it, to give it, because it's very vulnerable. It can be vulnerable to give feedback. Like, yes, I don't really understand what you just said. I mean, I've said that, like, I'm like a visual learner. It takes me, like with numbers, like it takes me, like, I kind of go, like you could say, you could have done all the math and the calculations and the numbers could be absolutely correct. And it would be so plainly obvious if you were explaining it to me. But when it's numbers, I just need to like kind of take a second to go, okay, that was the percentage of that. And then, okay, minus that. Okay, I'm with you. But like, if you just went through it and explained it really quick, I'm like, I can't, my brain doesn't process numbers that quickly. That's not one of my strengths. So I could do it, but I need more time to process, just a couple beats slower.
Yeah.
And
we all have those. We all have those things that we're strong in and areas that we're not so strong in. And it is, you're right, it's kind of a vulnerable thing to say, like, I actually didn't understand what you just said, or I'm not sure I'm processing this as quickly.
Or even like I totally spaced out, because I was like, that happened to me the other day in a meeting, like they're like, Leisa, can you take care of this? So I was kind of taking care of that and sort of half listening. And then I realized like, I realized I'm actually not hearing what's going on and I need to be, so I need to table this. But I also said, I got distracted by this other task.
Yeah.
Can we rewind a second, and I need to get caught up. But, you know, taking ownership of like, yeah, I kind of spaced out there for a second, totally missed everything that was just said.
Yeah.
My bad. I'm back on now. I'm fully present. Let's get started, you know.
And that's also the challenge of the world that we're in right now, because we're doing this, we're communicating via Zoom or via other platforms that we have, and it's easy, particularly if people don't turn their cameras on, it's very easy for people just to kind of sit back and then they're like on their other screen and they're
doing a
getting
pedicure or whatever going. I mean, who knows what's happening.
And we don't know what people are doing. So I'm working with companies at the moment to help them just with their staff. How do we manage a meeting online? How do we make sure that we're engaging people and so they're not getting distracted by the other things? And we do have kids at home now that should be at school, and we have pets running around that you wouldn't normally have in the office. So that there are a ton of other distractions out there for us. And we need to rethink, how do we make sure we communicate with each other like this, you know, virtually, because it's easier when you're face to face and you can see that somebody's kind of glazed over.
Yes.
You can't see it quite so well here. And particularly if people just don't put their cameras on. Then
right. So you can hide. So like, it's kind of like in terms of like, what are the ground rules and being really clear on the boundaries and the expectations, all that has to be like renegotiated, rediscovered, recommunicated.
Yeah.
Of like, how do we want to play?
Yeah, exactly. And feedback comes through their interaction. So if people aren't putting things in the chat box that you're asking them to, if they're not raising their hand, if they're not kind of doing those things, that is feedback to you. If you're managing a team, that you've lost them, you know, or you've lost certain members of your team who've gone off and done something else because they can, you know, we have that ability now to, you can't normally, if you're in a boardroom, you can't suddenly sneak out the room and like, I'm going to go and do something else, but we can do that now. So the communication that we are having with our teams and clients as well, that it's so critical right now. We've had to make, I hate that kind of pivot word, which we're using a lot at the moment, but we have had to make a change and really consider, you know, am I going back to the tips, you know, the first tip, am I listening to understand rather than be heard? Mm-hmm. So am I allowing people an opportunity to tell me how they're receiving my information? Am I judging them because of their behavior? So if you've got somebody in your team who keeps looking around them,
you're like, what's behind you?
Are you then thinking, they've switched off, or is there something going on behind them that they need to deal with? Yeah. So, and sometimes we need to say to people, is your kid having trouble with
do you need to go take care of something so that you can come back and
so looking at people's behaviors and not judging them, but using it as part of your communication consciously. Mm-hmm. And then think about, how do I make sure I get the feedback from my teams and from my clients, you know, when they just go, oh, I'm sorry, I think my internet's gone down, and dink, and, you know, they turn you off. That's feedback. You know, what are we doing about that, and how are we recovering that feedback? So these things haven't gone away. They've just got even more critical in the times that we're in right now.
Absolutely. And then how do people get a hold of you, Viki?
Yeah, so you can check out my website, which my company is spelled quirky. So my company name is Exelorate, and it's spelled EXELORATE. That's .com. So you can go to my website, And I have a couple of free assessments on there. So if you are managing a team right now and you're not really sure how engaged they are with your business and with your interaction with them as a leader, you can go in and do this free assessment. It's only a few questions and you'll get some feedback from me on the answers of your questions, and also some tips on things that you could do to improve that. If you're not managing a team, but you'd like to figure out how well your kind of accountability is and how well you're moving towards your own goals, there's an individual one there too. And again, just a few questions and you'll get an email back from me with some information. And of course, if you want to follow up with me, that's fine. There's no, I don't catch you and I reel you in with, haha, you've gone into my website. So it's totally there for you to use as a free resource. If you would like to have further conversations, then please reach out to me. So my email is Viki, and again, my name's spelled a bit quirky. So it's VIKI at Exelorate, EXELORATE.com. Or you can check me out on LinkedIn. And I'm there just to check me out. If you want to connect with me, I'm there. So
awesome.
I'd love to talk to you more about communication and creating light bulb moments. That's what I'm about.
Wonderful. And then I have one more question for you that I like to ask our guests on the show. It is called Rock Your Talk. So I got to ask, what's one of your favorite rock stars or rock bands of all time?
So it has to be Queen.
Ah!
Yeah. We Will Rock You. It's can't argue
that, right?
Yeah, a British band, an English band. Just they are gods to me. Yes,
they are amazing. They are amazing. Awesome. Well, I love Queen too. So how fun. Thank you so much for being on our show, and everybody out there listening, make sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube so that you can get more updates and more expert tips. I'm finding some great, amazing people out there for you. And if you have not already done this today, make sure to be kind to yourself and be kind to somebody else. And we'll see you on the next episode of Rock Your Talk. Bye.
Bye.